The markets are closed, but the business stories are just heating up. Hello, I'm Raine Musñgi. Catch up with us on Business Brief. The United States set new duties as high as 3,521% on solar imports from 4 Southeast Asian countries, delivering a win for domestic manufacturers while intensifying headwinds already threatening the country's renewable power development. Bloomberg reports the duties announced Monday are the culmination of a year-long trade probe that found solar manufacturers in Cambodia, Vietnam, Malaysia, and Thailand were unfairly benefiting from government subsidies and selling exports to the U.S. at rates lower than the cost of production. The investigation was sought by domestic solar manufacturers and initiated under former President Joe Biden. The levies will be in addition to new widespread tariffs imposed by U.S. President Donald Trump that have upended global supply chains and markets. The anti-dumping and countervailing duties, as they are known, are designed to offset the value of alleged unfair subsidization and pricing as calculated by the U.S. Commerce Department. Now, while the duties are set to benefit U.S. domestic manufacturers, they will also pinch U.S. renewable developers that have long relied on inexpensive foreign supplies, heightening uncertainty for a sector whipsawed by political and policy changes in Washington. Well, share averages across major Asian indices fell on Tuesday, following Wall Street's sharp losses overnight, with technology stocks leading the decline. In Tokyo, the Nikkei 225 opened down 0.5% alongside Hong Kong's Hang Seng, while Korea's Kospi fell 0.2%. U.S. stocks had suffered steep losses on Monday as U.S. President Donald Trump ramped up his attacks on Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, prompting investors to worry about the central bank's independence, even as they grapple with the effects of Trump's ongoing erratic trade war. In the currency exchange, the dollar languished near its lowest level in 3 years on Tuesday as Trump's unrelenting attacks on the Federal Reserve chairman further eroded investor confidence in the U.S. economy. The U.S. currency sagged close to the decade low reached the previous day against the Swiss franc and hovered near a 3.5 trough versus the euro. In commodities, oil prices climbed in early trade Tuesday as investors took advantage of the previous day's losses to cover short positions, although concerns persisted over economic headwinds from tariffs and U.S. monetary policy that could dampen fuel demand.
Trump is acting as if he has all the power right now. This is true not only in his demands about cutting interest rates, it's true about the executive decrees that he's issuing every day, where he states some emergency and then declares, by the powers vested in me as President of the United States, I do X, Y, and Z. The tariffs are the purview of Congress. They are not for the President of the United States to single-handedly overturn the international trade system. That's not how our Constitution works. The Fed is an independent agency. This is part of the point of effective monetary policy. But Donald Trump believes he's a one-person rule. And so this is part of his overall approach to power right now, not only to monetary policy. First, it needs for Congress to find its voice. Congress should read the U.S. Constitution, look at Article 1 of the U.S. Constitution. Congress is an independent branch of government with a lot of responsibilities that Donald Trump is trying to take right now. Congress should reject all of these declarations of emergencies. Second, the courts should read Article 3 of the U.S. Constitution. They are also a co-equal branch of government with the second branch in Article 2. In other words, we have a system of government that's based on checks and balances and systematic governance, not moving hour by hour to some social media announcement, to some emergency decree. What we need is actually government according to the rule of law. Things would really calm down a lot.
Well, U.S. CEO confidence has plunged to a new low, with business leaders reacting to President Donald Trump's tariff rollout. According to Chief Executive Magazine, a survey of 329 U.S. CEOs and business owners conducted from April 8 to 10 revealed the confidence index has dropped its lowest level since COVID-19, reflecting their assessments of current business conditions and the outlook for the next 12 months. An overwhelming majority of CEOs in the April survey attributed their declining optimism to Trump's global tariff regime. Among the surveyed executives, 67% expressed disapproval of the tariffs, while 76% predicted they would negatively or severely impact their business this year. An international financial analyst says U.S. tariff policies are posing risks to domestic consumption and financial markets, fueling inflation, disrupting business operations, and eroding global confidence in the U.S. dollar.
There are three domestic risks. The first is the inevitable increase in inflation. It's U.S. consumers who carry the burden of tariffs. The second is financial markets. They are just beginning to fully appreciate the destructive impact of tariffs that are having on their business model. That's why we're seeing some changes or delays in selected tariff categories. And the third is the bond market, because this erratic tariff policy makes the world lose trust in the US dollar and the security of US treasuries. The United States is bankrupt, and Trump is skilled at handling bankruptcy. First, you cut costs. That's Dodge, that's Elon Musk. Second, you generate income any way you can, and that's tariffs. Third, you reduce the cost of refinancing loans. That's crashing the market and the dollar. Fourth, you try and defer loan repayments, and that may involve converting debt into 50 or 100-year bonds, or using a synthetic default on the payment of treasuries to stop payment to selected countries that hold US treasuries. Trump doesn't care what the global trade system will look like as long as he is able to stave off bankruptcy and manipulate the market to make money for his friends.
We have to pause for a few reminders, but the biggest business stories from around the country are up next. Keep it here on Business Brief, only on the Bilyonaryo News Channel.
As she recalled how Nora
Welcome back to Business Brief. Globe Telecom logs record earnings in 2024 as new CEO Carl Cruz sets bold 5-year goals. Our correspondent Sujin Kim joins us on the line for details. Sujin, go ahead.
Yes, Raine, Globe Telecom reported its highest revenue on record in 2024. A strong start for new President and CEO Carl Cruz, who laid out an ambitious goal to make Globe the country's largest, most profitable telco in 5 years. Service revenues hit 165 billion pesos, driven primarily by mobile, which accounted for 116.7 billion. Mobile data alone contributed 97.4 billion, while enterprise services brought in 20.4 billion pesos. Core net income rose to 21.8 billion, backed by a healthy 52.6% EBITDA margin, a level Globe says it intends to maintain to support reinvestment and long-term sustainability. For 2025, the company is projecting low to mid-single-digit growth. Also in focus, cash flow. Globe is targeting to turn free cash flow positive in 2025, while keeping cash capex below $1 billion. Enterprise accounts and fiber broadband are expected to deliver most of the gains this year, with Globe sharply shifting its strategy towards B2B and fixed-line growth after years of mobile-led performance. Executives say cost discipline will be key to maintaining margins while still funding network expansion. Meanwhile, Globe also confirmed that GCash's planned IPO remains on the table. While no exact timeline was given, Globe said that the fintech unit should be ready when the market windows and valuation conditions become favorable. And those are latest updates from Makati City. Back to you, Raine.
Looking forward to that IPO. Thank you so much for that report, Sue Jin Kim. National artist Nora Aunor has been laid to rest. Hannah T joins us live from the Libingan ng mga Bayani in Taguig City. Hannah, go ahead.
Rain, some fans continue to come and go here at the Libingan ng mga Bayani as of 3 p.m. while final touches are still being made on the superstar's tomb. Around noon, her family began the final march toward her resting place after Nora Aunor was given necrological services at the Metropolitan Theater in Manila. A final salute was given. A gun salute echoed across the grounds, an honor granted to her as a national artist. Most fans who came here say they grew up in homes where loving the superstar was passed down through generations. Sisters Dottie and Badette shared that their mother first introduced them to the icon as she stood out because she wasn't like other actresses at the time. Dottie became emotional as she recalled how Nora broke barriers in Philippine cinema. At a time when fair-skinned, untouchable stars dominated the screen, Aunor proved that a simple Filipina from the margins could inspire millions. Others spoke of her kindness. For her effort to make fans feel seen and heard, they said Aunor never cared about status and she taught them to give back too. Rain, the superstar, is now buried beside acclaimed director Ishmael Bernal, who led the masterpiece Himala, where her iconic Walang Himala line was born. Aunor starred in over 170 films across decades. She won Best Actress at the Quezon City Film Festival in 1972 for And God Smiled at Me, and gained her first Gawad Urian and Famous Wins in 1976 for Tatlong Taong Walang Diyos. On television, she hosted a musical variety for more than 20 years. She was inducted into the Famous Hall of Fame in 1992 and given the Film Academy's Lifetime Achievement Award a year later. In 2022, she was officially named National Artist for Film and Broadcast Arts. She was 71 years old. And those are the latest here in Taguig City. Back to you, Rain.
Thank you so much for that report, Hannah T. And rest in peace, our superstar, Nora Aunor. More dollars, meanwhile, flew out of the Philippines last month as the country's balance of payments swung to a nearly $2 billion deficit in March, raising fresh concerns about foreign inflows and the peso's near-term trajectory. Bangko Sentral data show a $1.98 billion deficit, a sharp reversal from the $3.09 billion surplus in February, down from a $1.17 billion surplus in the same month last year. The balance of payments measures how much money enters and leaves the Philippine economy, and the deficit means more funds exited than came in. The BSP says the decline was mainly due to the national government's foreign currency withdrawals to pay off debt, as well as its own dollar operations in the foreign exchange market. The figures come amid heightened global uncertainty from Trump's tariffs to shifting capital flows. Business leaders and investors will be watching closely. A weaker BOP position could add pressure on the peso, import costs, and interest rate strategy in the months ahead. Holy Week travel surged this year with over 1.7 million passengers passing through NAIA between April 13 to 20. As infrastructure upgrades and smoother operations help the country's main gateway handle the holiday rush. The figure marks a 12.7% increase from the same period last year. Both international and domestic travel registered double-digit growth, with international passenger traffic up 11.21% and domestic passengers higher by 14.19%. The NAIA Infra Corporation, led by San Miguel Chief and Bilyonaryo Ramon Ang, says improvements in facilities and ground operations made a noticeable difference. The infrastructure upgrades will continue as the consortium prepares for even larger travel volumes ahead of the Christmas season. Well, the Holy Week numbers underscore NAIA's growing capacity under new management and raise expectations for long-term transformations for airport logistics and travel-driven economic activity. Air travel is getting more expensive as the Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines hikes terminal fees across the country. For international flights, the passenger service charge will rise from 550 pesos to 900 pesos. For domestic travel, the new NAIA terminal fee is 350 if you're departing from an international airport and 300 if you're flying out of a Class 1 airport or smaller facility. COP says the adjustment is long overdue and based on inflationary pressures, stressing that passengers who fail or refuse to pay will not be allowed to board. The higher fees come amid a recovery in Philippine aviation and could have a ripple effect on travel costs, airline pricing, and tourism flows. Business groups and tour operators are watching closely as cost sensitivity remains high amid a fragile consumer recovery. In other news, China pushes back against ongoing joint military drills between the Philippines and the United States. The allies have begun 3 weeks of annual exercises known as Balikatan. More than 14,000 troops are taking part in the drills, which will simulate a full-scale battle scenario. Beijing accuses Manila of undermining regional strategic stability.
The Philippines, in collusion with countries outside the region, conducts large-scale military exercises, introduces and deploys strategic and tactical weapons, undermines regional strategic stability, damages the region's economic growth prospects, and openly stands on the opposite side to regional countries. This has already aroused strong aversion and opposition from regional countries.
Corporate news now. Basic Energy Director Gil Buenaventura has died. Over his 5-decade career, the former Rizal Commercial Banking Corp and Development Bank of the Philippines president and CEO. The Manila Times reports Buenaventura joined RCBC that year after his predecessor resigned following the Bangladesh bank scandal, where $81 million in stolen funds was transferred to an RCBC branch in Makati. In property news, SM Prime is betting big on weekend getaways. The company's leisure arm launched Pico Terraces, a 2.3-hectare mid-rise residential estate inside Hamilo Coast. SM targets Manila-based families seeking balance, wellness, and access to beachside living. With 80% open space, it's set for completion by December 2027. On to the markets now. Philippine shares extend their winning streak. The main index in positive territory for a second day, closing Tuesday up 0.1% to 61.45, among the better performers in the region for the day. Advancers outperformed decliners 95 to 83. Value turnover reached 4.8 billion pesos. Mining and oil pushed up prices, ending higher for the day by 1.82%. SM Prime Holdings led the surge, along with Plus or DigiPlus up 2.25% for the day. Meanwhile, at the foreign exchange market, the peso is currently trading at 56 pesos and 72 centavos to the greenback, weaker than Monday's close of 56.61. That's a wrap for today's Business Brief. I'm Raine Musñgi. Join us again tomorrow as we bring you the stories that help you plan your next big, bold moves in business, only here on the Bilyonaryo News Channel. We'll leave you with clips of world leaders paying tribute to the Pope of the People, Papa Francesco.
I just signed an executive order putting the flags of our country, all of them, all federal flags, and state flags at half-mast in honor of Pope Francis. So he was a good man, worked hard, he loved the world, and it's an honor to do that.
This is a man who treated Russia in an extremely positive manner. This man, I want to emphasize once again, who had a highly positive attitude towards Russia, and we will remember this.
Everyone in the world must not be limited to remembrance and gratitude, but must translate into responsibility in making the indications of his teachings their own in everyday behavior.
He, throughout his pontificate, stood alongside the most vulnerable, the most fragile, with great humility and a very special sense, in these times of war and brutality, a very special sense of the other, yes, and of the most fragile. And in this, he was faithful to a tradition that was dear to him.
For Australian Catholics, he was a devoted champion and loving father. May God welcome Pope Francis to eternal life. I have asked the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet that all flags from the Commonwealth Government of Australia will fly at half-mast tomorrow as a sign of respect. And my sincere condolences to everyone.
Pope Francis was a messenger of hope, humility, and humanity. Our divided and discordant world will be a much better place if we follow his example of unity and mutual understanding in our own actions.